Do you think that Starmer is sort of influenced by the left of the party, that he's feeling the pressure from the left of the party, or is it just that although he's not Corbyn, he's also, a relatively left-wing guy, he's a human rights lawyer, and he's to some extent just not immune to the sort of kind of anti-Israel or let's just say very sympathetic to the Palestinians atmosphere that pervades the human rights community more generally?
Yes, I pretty much agree with everything you've just said. Look, Starmer is definitely not a Corbyn light. They're very different characters. Starmer would never refer to or consider Hamas or Hezbollah as his friends. He would not share platform with Holocaust deniers like Corbyn did. It's not just on matters of Israel or Jews. I mean, Corbyn, I remember, was once asked, which foreign leader do you most admire in the past? And he answered Erich Honecker, who was the worst of the communist dictators in East Germany. So, Corbyn admired everyone from, I think, Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela. There, right now, as we speak, anti-Maduro demonstrations going on in Argentina, Spain, even in London, against the corrupt, fixed, rigged election yesterday in Venezuela. So Starmer is not some total leftist Trotskyite like who sides with the worst dictators of the world, like Corbyn. And he's definitely, from what I can see, I mean, I've never met Corbyn. I have met Starmer once. Starmer is, a decent person as far as I can see. He's perfectly affable, nice person, but he's not particularly ideological and certainly not for Israel. So I think a lot of British Jews, when they thought of Starmer, they thought of Tony Blair. Now, Tony Blair was the last, well, he wasn't the last Labour leader. Gordon Brown was, and before that, Tony Blair. And both Blair and Brown were personally, by and large, very sympathetic to Israel, especially Brown. And I think British Jews regarded Starmer as a kind of more in the Blairite tradition. What we see is he's got one foot in the Corbynite direction, whether it's because he shares the ideological platform or whether it's just the reality of British society and the Labour Party, which is totally obsessed with Palestine. They wave the flags of only one country at their national conventions en masse, the flags. And that country is not the United Kingdom. It is the non-existent country of Palestine. So there is an absolute obsession with it. And by the way, I'm not saying that people shouldn't support Palestinian rights or the aspirations towards a state. That's fine. But there are about 200 peoples around the world that would like their own state. I don't think a Labour Party member would even recognize a Tibetan or a Kurdish flag, let alone a Baluchi flag, if they even know what Baluchistan is. So, which are very repressed people, the Baluchis. Google it if you haven't heard of the Baluchis, or the Rohingya Muslims, nor do they condemn China day and night because of the Uyghurs in Tibet, and I can go on. There are so many human rights issues around the world, or even within Europe. Look at, for example, the Catalans, or even the Scots, part of the United Kingdom, or even the desire of many in Northern Ireland to leave the United Kingdom. No, they're obsessed with only one country, Palestine. So I can't answer whether Starmer shares that obsession or he just is going with the flow. But in the end, it doesn't really matter. He's the leader. He needs to be responsible. British prime ministers have a tradition, at least in recent decades, of not going with the mob against Israel. And that mob is not just a left-wing mob, it's also the British Foreign Office, the equivalent of the State Department or Foreign Ministry, who are by and large conservative with a small c, who have traditionally been very anti-Israel. But if you look at prime ministers, they've been quite good on Israel, including Labour prime ministers like Harold Wilson, conservative prime ministers like Margaret Thatcher. I already mentioned Labour prime ministers Blair and Gordon Brown, other Conservative prime ministers, Boris Johnson, Theresa May, in the past, David Cameron, though not more recently. All of them have been relatively sympathetic to Israel. So Keir Starmer would be breaking with the trend and going with the crowd, so to speak. One final point, but it's maybe for a different discussion. You mentioned Starmer's wife is Jewish, and indeed Starmer has said that they keep a form of Shabbat, Friday night meals at the Starmer household, and they're members of a reform or liberal synagogue. That's what he said. No doubt to doubt him, although I might point out that he was spotted on last Friday evening at the opening of the Olympics in Paris during Shabbat, and on a previous Friday at one of the football matches I mentioned before. So he obviously doesn't keep Shabbat with his family every Friday evening. The fact that his wife is Jewish is neither here nor there. It might make her or Starmer a little bit more aware of anti-Semitism. Their children are Jewish from Halakha, are being brought up as members of a Reformed Jewish synagogue. So he may be more sensitive to anti-Semitism. On the other hand, he was a member of the shadow cabinet under Corbyn at the height of the anti-Semitism crisis, and other Labour MPs spoke out very strongly against Corbyn. Quite a number quit the party. Starmer was very, very quiet all that time. So I would say the jury's out to what extent Starmer feels any kind of affiliation through his wife with Jewish identity or history or community.